Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to Jamie Photography. This video's quite an involved video. I've got a lot of generative fill to show you on this one. This is what we ended up with, a bit of a day to night. We're out in Virginia City in Nevada, the Wild West. Really great place to visit. I'd urge you, if you're in that area, Lake Tahoe area, to go over and spend some time in this wonderful little town. There's a fabulous railroad here, and there's a real old west, wild west feel to the place. So I saw this sort of row of shops here, and there was this fantastic truck parked outside. But let's take you to where we started. I think you might be quite surprised. Actually, that was the original shot that we took. It's a really bright sunny day. It was very warm. We had a lot of cars in there, and you might think, well, why didn't you wait for the cars to disappear? It was so busy. It was a weekend, a lot of people around, and a lot going on. But I saw the truck, I saw the row of shops. I thought they would make a really good day to night attempt there. But it's a lot of work on this video, so hopefully you'll enjoy coming with me. The raw file for this image is available, and there's a link in the comments below. Feel free to download and follow along. All I do is ask that you respect my copyright on the original image. And if you do choose to share your version of this image on social media or online, all I ask is please give credit to Jamie Mathlin. That would be much appreciated. So yeah, okay, let's get started. With my normal workflow, I tend to go down and deal with the perspective first. So we're going to go down to transform, as you can see here. Going to click on auto just to see if it works okay. In fact, it does. The power line hole there is straight, these are straight, and it's here, so I don't need to worry about using guided, which I would normally do. So having done that, what I'm then going to do is go to Denoise, and in the detail section, and I always run the Denoise function now, the new AI function, because although I shot this, as you can see, at ISO 100 f7.1 320th of a second on my RF 14 to 35 f4 lens, as you can see at 35mm. The level of noise here is extremely low. If I zoom in here, what have I gone to? 200%. The level of noise here is very, very small. So you might say, well, why bother? ISO 100 is pretty good. The thing is that denoise actually works very well to reduce the noise still further, because if I boost this exposure here up maybe 2 stops, okay, you can just about start to see a little bit of noise starting to appear, certainly in this shadow area here. So what we'll do is we'll run denoise. So I'll click on denoise, and it will take this CR3 raw file from my Canon R5, and it will convert it into a DNG, a digital negative, to work within Adobe's products. Now, because I have quite a low level of noise, I'm actually going to select a relatively low level of noise correction. So I'm going to go with 30%. I'm going to create, I won't create a stack in this case, because a stack just puts the original image behind the new image that it will create, so that you don't end up with too many images in your film strip. But I'm going to not click that, because we can click one to the other to see the difference once we're done. So even if you just click on this here, you can see that that's without enhancement. So look at the noise just to the right of the pillar there, and that's with. You can see that it disappears. So we're just going to click enhance, and it will run the denoise function here to correct this whole image. I'll just move that over so we can see that noise that we've got there. So once it's complete, you'll see the difference. So it does take a little while, depending on your computer, because this is all done inside the computer here. It's not going out on the internet. It's just done by the CPU itself. So it's just finishing up now. So this is the enhanced noise reduction.dng. Still has the same file name, and as you can see there, it's done a good job. So if I go back to the pre-enhanced, there we go, 9328 CR there's noise there. If I go in just a bit closer, just show you, we go to 300%. So that's the original image. You see the noise there. And if I go to the enhanced version, and that was at 30%. If I'd gone 50%, I could have improved it even more. But because we're so low, We don't need to do that. And just for reference, I find that Denoise gives me between 4 to 5 stops of noise correction. And what that means is that if I shoot at 3200 ISO and use Denoise at about 70%, I can correct the noise back to almost ISO 100. And that's pretty impressive. And it's made me realize that I don't need to be too shy about using ISO anymore. So I do tend to use higher ISOs, when necessary, so I don't have to take a tripod with me all the time. So I'm just going to set the exposure back to where it was. So I just double clicked on the word exposure. That puts it back to 0. So we've got the perspective sorted. We've also got the denoise sorted. So this image is really ready to go forward and give it a little bit of Jamie magic, see where we can go with this one. So like always, I do my videos with you fresh. I don't pre-practice them. I try to find my way through the image as I do it with you. So so let's have a go. Just before we throw this into Photoshop to use the generative fill and remove tool functions, because we've got some work to do here with all these cars and people, I'm just going to open up the shadows so we can see underneath there. That's nice and clear. I'm just going to bring the highlights down as well. Probably not all the way, probably down to about 60, 65, minus 65. If we go too far, if I take that to minus 100, you get a little bit of a sort of tone mapping look, an almost HDR look. So you have to be a little bit careful. If you do need to go all the way down with the highlights and you end up with this tone effect, you can always just back off the clarity slightly. If you back off the clarity, in this case, say by about minus 20, that does take away a little bit of that sort of tone mapping effect. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to set clarity back to 0, and I'm going to put highlights at minus 65. Okay, that looks pretty good. And now we're going to throw this over into Photoshop. So Generative Fill is still only available at this time in Adobe Photoshop beta version, and the beta version 25.0 isn't working particularly well with Lightroom in terms of transfer. So currently I'm still using 24.7 beta version. So let's right click on the image, let's edit in, and I'm editing in Adobe Photoshop beta, and I'll click on that and it should take us, there we go, it takes us straight across. See, it's telling me there's a newer version available, which I have tried, but as I say, it has a Lightroom transfer issue at the moment. Okay, so now we're here. We're going to have to work our way through removing these vehicles. Now, the reason I took this shot was, firstly, it is the Wild West. I do love the architecture and the style. And there was this fabulous truck parked here. So I thought, I needed to get an angle to make sure I got all of the truck in. So you can see I just got an angle, so I've got the whole truck in the shot. And what we will need to do is remove all the cars and the people. So this is really pushing the generative fill function to its limits. Hence why I've called it, generative fill in the Wild West. It's some work to be done here. So let's get started with it. So we'll start probably on the right hand side. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to select the zoom tool down here, and I'm just going to select positive, and I'm going to zoom in on this corner down here. So I think I've mentioned it before in my videos, but Generative Fill only runs to a maximum resolution of 1024 pixels by 1024 pixels. So you really want to try to not do huge areas with correction. You want to do sort of smaller areas at a time, and then you can deal with the other areas. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look to take out this car here. So I'm going to go to the lasso tool here, and then click on that to select the lasso tool. You can use the polygonal tool, which gives you straight lines, and you can also use the magnetic lasso tool. I'm going to just start just off shot here, right on the edge there, and then we're just going to draw around this car, nose of this car, trying to keep as much as we can in of the gold hill foundation pillar area there. So we're just coming around here. And remember, it's really important that when you draw around these things is to also include the shadow. Okay, it's really important. So we're just going to come back, we're going to go off screen here, and then we can just draw around off the screen and connect back up to where we started. So there's our selection. So we're going to click Generative Fill, and then I'm going to click Generate. Now, to help speed the video up a little bit, I will just speed these bits up because you'll see how long it takes. It's got to send the information off to Adobe, so you do need to have a reasonably good internet connection. They're going to process this generative fill requirement on their servers, and then it will be sent back. And as you can see, it's done the trick. It's even put this guy's leg in. Yeah, so it's not done a very good job with the lady's leg here, but we're not too worried because we're going to remove her and we're going to remove this gentleman. But that's option 1, that's option 2, and that's option 3. Don't know what this little thing is it's put in here, but it's certainly in each case sorted out the gentleman's rear leg, and it's continued along the wood, as you can see here. So that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3, and I think 3 is the one I'm going to go with. Right, so I'm going to say thank you, Adobe. Click on the little thumbs up, and then we're going to move on to the next point here, which is going to be to remove this lady. So still got the lasso tool here, and we're going to go around her as such. So and whilst I'm doing this, I'll just let you know that I've had a lot of people sort of say to me, you know, what pointing device do you use? Do you use a Wacom tablet, or do you use a mouse, or what is it you use? And actually, most of my videos I do on my MacBook Pro, and this is me just using the trackpad that's built into the MacBook Pro. They are very, very good, and the MacBook Pros have got quite large trackpad, pretty big, and they're very sensitive to use. And also you can move your mouse around by moving your finger and then pressing with your other finger, which will hold the position whilst you reposition your finger again. It's very good to see. As you can see, I can draw quite good lines with it. So as I said earlier, from now on, all the generative fills, I'm just going to speed up the video so you don't have to wait each time for it to take place. So I'm going to click on generative fill, and then I'll click generate. Okay, there you go. So it's done a pretty good job removing her and adding in these bits of the wall behind. So that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. And actually, I think number 2 is the best. It's included this piece of paper or whatever's on there. So we'll say thank you, Adobe. That's great. And then we're going to go on to do the next one, which is to remove this gentleman from the scene. So same thing again. We're going to use the lasso tool to just draw around him. I'm just going to try to go tight there to keep that little detail on the wall in there, around his hand there, down his legs. Now it'll be interesting to see what it does with the text. It tends, Generative Fill, to produce a little bit of gobbledygook, to be honest. So we'll just have to see what it looks like, and if it doesn't look any good, we'll have to remove it. So we're just tracing around him, keeping as tight as we can where the writing is, and then back up to the top, and there we go. And I'll do the generative fill function again. There we go. So as you can see, it does create some strange, almost Celtic text when it can't actually know what's written there. So that's something I'm sure they'll develop in time to allow you to maybe continue words that go across. That's number 1. That's number 2. That looks better actually. And number 3, there's a little bit of a shadow there. So I'm going to go with number 2. Say thank you, Adobe. Happy with that. So we've got rid of that one as well. So as you can see, each time we do a generative fill, we get a new layer for each one. So, and that's something that we'll have a look at later, just to explain how you can use other tools like the remove tool. So we're going to go across now, and what we're going to do is we're going to deal with this car, this big white car in the middle here. And this really does show the performance of the generative fill function when we're going to take something as big as this out of the shot. Now you could argue that we should take the people out at the same time, and in this case I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the car first and then the people, because of this limitation on resolution. I don't want to lose too much resolution here. So we're zoom right in nice and tight, and we're going to go around this car, but because it's a white to a darker all the way around, what I'm actually going to use is I'm going to try using the magnetic lasso tool. So we effectively take a starting point here and we follow along this edge, and you just effectively steer around the edge of the car where you have quite a good contrast difference between the car itself and other parts of the area that surround the car. So you can get quite a good crop. So as you can see here, it's doing very well in following that line. We're going to go around the shadow as well. Just go around there. Now, if there's an area where you think I'm not going to be able to get such good contrast, there's a bit of dirt on the road here, a bit of garbage, you can just go out and around it and then come back onto that line. And as you can see, it's taking the edge using the magnetic, effectively the magnetic lasso to try to give us, because we've got a high contrast, this can work quite well. So let's see how well it works. Just drawing around the rest of this line here, up there, making sure, as I said before, that you get the shadow included in the shot itself, because you don't want the shadow of the car with no car above it. So we're still working our way around. We're still finding that edge between the car and the background. And I hope this works well, because I don't really want to have to redraw all of this again. Actually went slightly off track there, but we'll keep going. And we'll go over the top of the little aerial. There we go. Running across the roof. And we will get back to where we started. So that's fine. So we're happy with that. So we can just hit enter to accept the selection. And it's looking like it's got most of it. There's a little bit there that it hasn't got. So we may have to deal with that afterwards. I'm going to leave that for a minute. So you can go to modify the selection here, and you can feather the selection. So you can add additional pixels all the way around the edge to where you've got. So I could say, take me back 10 pixels. Okay. So effectively it's pushed back 10 pixels from the edge that we had. But because we're using generative fill, we're not too worried. We can actually say, well, you know, we can feather that edge off. So that gives us a sort of round off on the edge. But also, I'm going to make that slightly bigger. I'm going to take that to 15 pixels. But what I'm also going to do in here is I'm going to go to expand the selection, and I'm going to expand the selection by 5 pixels. So what we have is now, as you can see here, and I'll zoom in a little bit more, you'll see, we now have a little bit of an edge appeared there, and we're going to feather away that edge by using that feather element as well. So we should get a really good selection for making sure that we have got the whole car in the shot. So we'll accept what we've got there, click generative fill, and then I'll click generate. So there we go. That's what it's come up with. It's made a bit of a mess of this area here. The boardwalk doesn't seem to continue. So let's see what option 2 gives us. Much better, much better. So you can see there, we've got that running boardwalk. Pretty happy with that. And let's see what option 3 gave us. And sort of giving us an entrance area, not so good. Obviously the people we'll deal with in a while, because this lady's now got 2 feet coming out the back, looks like she's flying. Let's just run generative fill again and just see what other options it can give us. And you do that by hitting this sort of recycle button here. So the next 3 options are this one. So the curb's a bit broken, the boardwalk's not looking so good. So I'm just going to go to the next one from that. Wow, all this rubbish that's appeared over here, and this is not looking so good here. So actually number 3 is not very good. So I'm going to say I don't like number 3. I don't like number 2. I'm not really very happy about number 1. 5 is okay, so I'm not going to say yes or no to that. And this one was the best one that we have, so I'm going to say thank you, Adobe. I like that one, and the previous one I didn't like, so I'm going to say I don't like that one. So you've given them some good feedback, and they can use that information to help develop things further in the future. So I'm going to accept that one. Happy with that. Now, what we do need to do is look at the people now in this location. So again, this time I'm not going to use the magnetic, because there is not a lot of contrast between some of the people and the areas, particularly his hair. So I'm going to go back to right click and take the lasso tool. I'm going to start just above this man's head here. I'm just going to come down and try to stay relatively close round there, up round these hands. Whole family here looking like they're having a great day. And I must admit, we had a great day as well in Virginia City. It really is like stepping back to the Wild West. A lot of native Indian merchandise and art. to be purchased here. So, and I always think it's nice that if you go to somewhere like this, you can support the local people a little bit by buying some things whilst you're visiting. So we did certainly have a very good day here. So I'm just going to come along here underneath whatever the last generative fill created for us, and we'll go back round this gentleman here, and then we will continue back. I'm just going to stay between him and the door because I like the edge of the door there. So I'm just going to go through there, and we're going to go back up onto his head. So that's quite an intense selection that we've made there. Careful to make sure that we've got just a little bit of space around the outside. So we'll click Generative Fill and we'll generate. Okay, so this is option 1 it's come up with. It's pretty good as well. Pretty good indeed, actually. So number 2, that's also very good. We've got this sort of pillar coming down. We've got this sort of space here underneath the window. And number 3, yeah, not so good. Not sure I like that so much. But then it does look quite natural with this piece of wood coming across between these beams. Now there you go. That's the one I want. Got like a window section and some stylistic writing there. So I'm going to say, yeah, I really like that one. So thank you very much, Adobe, for that one. I'm going to accept that one. So happy with that. So we're going to move down. So I'm going to hold down the shift key, going to move down the road a little bit. We've got this gentleman in here. This is the truck I want to keep. So let's just sort this gentleman out here. Again, using the selection tool here. I'm just going to run down there. Try not to take too much of the post out. We will want to get rid of the gentleman along the top of the car. Back up here. There we go. And we click Generative Fill and Generate. So option 1, it gives us added some green detail there. So option 2, there we go. That's perfect. Just see what option 3 was. Yeah, no, option 2 is the one I like. It's brought that column down. So yes, thank you, Adobe. Really good to do that. So that was relatively easy. Got another little gentleman tucked in here. Very small, but we will just remove him as well. Generative Fill and Generate. There we go. That seems to be a pretty good selection there. Number 1, number 2, number 3. I think I'm going to go with number 1. Thank you, Adobe. It's really good. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of using the generative fill here. We've still got some work to do on this last element, but I want to make sure that we get this vehicle, this truck here, included. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in still closer, and what we're going to do is remove this black car. And the closer you get in, obviously, the better your selection will be. So I'm going to right click, take the magnetic lasso, and I want to go start. I'm going to start with this edge here by this mirror, and we're going to go around the outside of this mirror, around the outside of this mirror, down here, and then we're going to run round the edge of the car. Because we've got a black car against the green van, we do get quite a good selection line between the two of them. So let's just come round here. So we're going to remember we're selecting the black car, not the truck. So we can follow up here, because we do want that little bit of a road in there. And I'm going to go all the way down where we can see, because that shadow's come from the street light. Come around the bottom here, come back along this shadow, around the bumper on the truck, keeping the shadow of the car. There we go, just running along that edge. It's almost like painting or pouring the line into the edge. You'll see when you're quite close that it's very clever at the way it applies the magnetic lasso to the high contrast area. So just coming in here along the bottom of the tyre, and we need to go up the edge of the white car. We will deal with the white car in a minute, but we're just going to remove the black car for now. As I say, not trying to bite off too much more than we can chew here due to the resolution that we have available to us. We need to just try to keep within those limits so we don't end up having a blurry selection as we come round. So it's better that we're outside here, because the contrast is relatively low over this point here. It's fine that we just stay a little bit further away from the car as we're going round, so the selection will work and make sure that the whole of the car is removed. So we're back to where we started. There we go. So I'm going to select that. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to feather it ever so slightly, particularly because it's running around the edge of this car here. So we're just going to feather this by 5 pixels, and that should give us a nice feathered edge along there. And then we're going to go straight into Generative Fill and Generate again. Okay, so that's the first option it's come up with. Not very good at all. We were hoping to see the edge of that curb running along further. So let's see what the second selection is. Oh, that's much better. It's given us this edge here. There's something going on here which we'd have to correct. Not too sure about what's standing here either. So let's look at option 3. Wow, no, there's too much there. So I'm going to run the generative fill again. That's interesting. It's put a bit of curb out further. This looks a bit better back here, but we're going to try the next one that's given us. It's not too bad. That one's not so good. So I think it's either that one or I think it's probably going to be this one. We can sort the details out later, and we're also going to sort these other cars out. So I'm going to say, yeah, thanks Adobe for that one. I'm going to move over here. So these are the additional 3 options it's now given us. I'll just zoom back there. So so there's an option 1. It's pretty good. It's got the bottom of the lamppost, but it stops a bit shy. Option 3, no. So I think I'm going to go with the original option 1, which I thought was very, very good. You can see there, it's just got the bottom of the lantern in there. That works okay. I'm quite happy with that. So we just need to remove these last few little details. There's a car in there, a few bits and pieces in here. So we're going to go back to the lasso tool. We're going to select the polygon to get nice straight edges, because we can then run down these edges here. So I'm just going to come down there across here. I think that one's a closer option to it, so I'm gonna be happy with that one. So we're getting close. Just want to tidy up this one as well. So awful lot of generative fill going on in this one, but I think it's necessary just to make sure we've removed all of the cars and the other bits and pieces that are in there. So I'm just going to come across here to that side, come back up this side here, back up to the top, generative fill and generate. That's option 1, option 2, and option 3. No post in there. We can put that back in if we need to. I'm going to go with option 1, and we just include that bit of the street light in a moment. Now, just for the sake of time here, I'm just going to speed up my generative fill functions here. So I'm just going to be quiet for a moment whilst I take out the remainder cars here. So I'll speed the video up. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, so we're complete on all of those generative fills. I'm just going to go back to fit screen to see how all that looks down the bottom there. Yeah, quite happy with that. That all looks reasonably good. I do need to just add in the bottom of this this light here. This seems to have lost its way a little bit. So what we can do is go back and use the stamp tool, the clone stamp tool, so we can copy from one area to another. So for example, if I want to copy this lamppost here into there, I can do that. So I also need to extend this lamppost down here at the bottom. So I'm just going to press Option or Alt key to take a copy there and just make the brush a little bit bigger. And what I can do is I can then oh, before we do that, we do need to join all these generative layers back together into a single layer so that we're working with the background. Now I did have a good tip from one of my subscribers. Rather than doing what I normally do, which is select all of the layers together and then right click, what you can do is just, as long as you're on any one of these layers, you can effectively just right click straight away and just merge visible. So everything that you can see on the screen will be merged into a single layer. And there we go. It's done that. So let me just take a stamp here. I'm just going to go up as far as I can here, take a slightly smaller brush, and then just going to press down the Option or Alt key on Windows and click once, and it's got a copy then effectively of that area. And I can just move down and across, and it will just paint in that lamppost there. You can see that it's taken that ring and it's applied it there. So again, I can just take another stamp from here, and I can just paint that out. We can run down still further, Option or Alt key, take another stamp from here, go down to the bottom here and just take that down. and finish it where we like it there. And if we wanted to, we could put a little rounded edge on the bottom by using this. So take a smaller brush here, literally take another stamp from this edge here, and then we could just draw that around. So we've got a base on that lantern there. So we just copied that from above. So that's looking pretty good. We want to copy this over to this one here. Now, this is a different scale. It's further away. All right. So what we do need to do is we will need to take a copy of this one and make it smaller to fit in this one over here. Now, to do that, we do need to take effectively select a mask here to take that lamp itself into place. So I'm going to include the banners as well. So what we need to do is just zoom in on the bit that we want to copy. So we can try the magnetic lasso here, and we can try to take a nice edge selection using the magnetic lasso around the edge here. And if we do not get the selection perfect, we can use the mask function in a while to just correct for it. So I'm just going down here. I'm going to go over those bumps there, around there, and we're going to come down this bit that we drew effectively around the bottom of the lamppost, back up the other side, and we can sort the details out in a moment. So back up to there, around this selection here, sticking to this edge. So I know this seems like a lot of work, but what I'm trying to show you when I'm doing these things is all the different ways you can use the functions that are available to you to actually, make your photograph into a piece of artwork that you enjoy and that you like, and you'd be happy to display to others. So there we go. I've made the selection there. Just going to press enter. Now it's not perfect here. So what I can do to just improve these edges is go into select and mask, and you can see the area that we've selected. Now what we can do is we can actually zoom in a bit closer just to see how good the selection is, and we can select either the refine edge, which we're on here, so we can take a refine edge by coming down through there, or we can select the brush tool here, and I'm just select a decent size for the brush itself, and then just popped a bit early there. What I can do is I can draw that edge back in like that, and now we can see the edge there. Okay, so then what we can do is we can, still using the brush tool, we can now use, by pressing the option or alt on Windows, we can deselect, effectively go from a positive to a negative, and then what we're able to do is take it out. Let me make the brush a little bit smaller. So I'm going to come over here, and now I can just come in along that edge there, and we can just make that edge look a little bit neater as we come through. Still not good enough, so I've taken my finger off the option key now, and I can work my way back up just to find that edge there, and that works quite well. Smaller brush still. Just want to come in here and get the end of that little pole there. That works quite well. It's going to go up to the top. I'm happy with the selection around here. Just make sure we've got the end there, which we do. And just going to take that little bit there. So just working into the detail just a little bit to make sure we've got everything we need as part of our selection. This is a bit rough and ready down here, so I'm going to click once at the top there, and I'm going to click once, shift and click at the bottom to get a straighter line. Did you see that? Put a straighter line in. Now I'm going to select negative. I'm going to take a selection at the top here, select once, and I'm going to hold down the bottom here, hold the shift down and select again. Now I've got a nice straight edge there, and I'm just going to take the rest of this area out, just paint this out here. Shift click at the bottom just to straighten that edge up. I'm going to feather it out by half a pixel, and I'm just going to smooth the edge by 1 pixel, and I'm going to click OK. So now our selection is much better for what we've got. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press Command C or Control C on a window and effectively make a copy, and then I'm going to Command or Control V, so I'm just pasting a second one on there. And as you'll see now, if I select the Move tool, because it's now been put on a separate layer, I can now move this copy effectively anywhere I want to on the screen here. So I want to put it down here, and it needs to go in under this light here, right? But it's too big. It's too big. So what we're going to do to make it smaller is you can go to Edit, and you can go to Free Transform, or you can press Command T or Control T on Windows. So Free Transform, and that effectively gives us the ability now to change the size and shape of this column just by moving it down. And then I can move it up and sort of try and find the location where we want it to go. So it's still perhaps just a little bit too big. Just going to make it a little bit smaller there. In fact, what I'm going to do is going to shrink it that way, bring it out a little bit wider, and just find where that bottom's going to go. I think that's probably going to be in about there. Quite happy with that. You can click commit, or you can just hit return to install that in that location. And there we go. It's in that position, and it's been resized. So if we go back to the full image now, fit screen, you can see we've got the light columns in, matches this one. Could argue we might need to do the same with this one down here, because this one doesn't look so good. So what we can do is we can zoom in, right, and we can Command V, so we get another copy there. We go to the move tool and we move this one down. There we go, and we Command T, Free Transform. We get it down to the size we want it. Put it in there under the lamp. Needs to be a bit smaller, maybe just a slightly bigger. I know there's a little bit of detail there, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to accept that that's okay. Happy with that. This needs a little bit more clarity put on it, which we'll do when we go back into Lightroom. So I've spent a lot of time here in Photoshop to get us to a position where we've got the lamps, we've only got the truck. I do want to just take out some of these cross lines here. If I had more time in the video, I would also take the power line out. But for now, what I'm going to do is move this back into Lightroom after I've just taken the remove tool. So I'm just going to go to spot healing tool, brush, double click, take the remove tool, make the brush big enough because it's quicker to use the remove tool. When it's a simple remove that needs to be done, remove tool is very, very good at doing it. So we can move forward quite quickly by doing that. I'm just going to look around the screens at anything else that we need to take out here. I might just take out these power lines coming down, leave the main ones going across, just to take away some of the sort of unnecessary details. So still not using the remove tool, so I'm just going to click there, and we're going to paint down on this power line that just seems to be hanging here. I'm surprised they leave it like this, because they must get an awful lot of lightning, and these things are very susceptible to being struck. So just pop that in there. There's the remove tool, that's gone. Same with that little bit there. We'll take these cables coming off the pole here. Just take those and you just paint them in. Bring that down to the bottom here. There you go. Very good. And then we'll just tidy up the mess that's on this side. I think we'll come down from underneath the transformer, and we will just paint those lines out. So I'm going to come across here. So crossing over the other power lines as such. Come back up this one. And it's best to try to not do too much in one go, in terms of having a big brush and just covering everything. It's best to use a smaller brush and have some sort of fine detail as you go through, and it's very good at removing these. In fact, it added in another line there, which was a little bit unnecessary, but I'm happy with that. So take the bird flying out in the distance there, and this black chimney is just a little bit distracting. And I think we're probably in a good position. We could take out all the rest of these power lines, but I think for now, I think we've got the image we want. We've ended up with just the truck. So I'm going to go to File, Close, and then Save. and then it's going to pop it back into Lightroom for us. And then there we go, we're back here. So if we recall, we had this was our original, that was our original image, so 9328, and this is our noise enhanced and removed. So we went from that to that. Pretty impressive, I've got to be honest. So and we've made this into quite an interesting scene now with the van there, the truck in the shot. So what we need to do is just finish off and do the Lightroom corrections. So where should we start? Well, I always tend to start off by bringing down my exposure by at least sort of 2. In this case, I might even go to 2.5 stops. It was a very bright day. And we just want to darken this sky in a little bit over here. So I'm just going to go into masks. I'm going to select sky. It should do us a good selection on the sky. I'm just going to darken that down a little bit more. You can bring down the highlights maybe a little bit. Got to be careful with the edge here. So what we can do with that is we can fill that in more with a brush. So we can add a brush, and we can take quite a low feather, quite a high flow, and what we can do is we can just bring that edge in a little bit more, so we don't get the halo running along that edge. There we go. There's a little bit there in that corner. Just take a smaller brush, just paint that in. There we go. So what we can also do then is we can subtract from this the opposite of the sky, right? So we can subtract the sky again, right? But this time we're going to invert it so that we effectively have a running edge. So it's a little bit too dark. Back to the mask there. Sky one, a little bit too dark. So we're just going to bring it up a little bit. There we go. So we want to relight these areas, want to put these lights on. I might even think that we could bring the whole image down, just come out of masks for a moment, take it down another half a stop, possibly bring it down a little bit darker. So it's almost moonlight. So I'm down at about 3.25 stops minus underexposed. Okay. Now we haven't lost any of the data. It's all still there. So we can bring that data back by relighting the specific areas that we want to do. Just going to open up the shadows just a little bit at this stage, probably plus 40. And I'm just going to bring the temperature down because I want this to feel more like moonlight now. So just going to bring it down, probably down to about minus 10. I think probably is about right. Yeah, image could come down even darker. It'll come down to minus 3.5. So it almost looks like moonlight. And that temp's going to come down to minus 15, just to give you that moonlight look. So now we need to add in the artificial lighting to sort of bring the whole thing up. And we're going to need to be creative in these under areas to make it look like there's actually light coming in under there. But before we do that, I'm going to bring these street lights on and simulate some light coming in from a street light just off to the left here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a mask, a radial gradient, and we're going to put a radial gradient over this lantern here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer so you can see what we're doing. So just come out of there, space bar to hold down. Just going to move over and take this lantern here. We're going to bring the brightness right up on this radial gradient, just like that. Okay, happy with that. That's nice and bright. Add in some color, some temp. So I'm just bringing out about 40 on the temp color. And I'm going to add in a little bit of magenta just to check it so it's not too green in its color. We're going to subtract a brush, and I'm going to take 100% flow, quite a low feather, and I'm just going to cut in around, just going to come in even closer onto this lantern. I'm just going to cut in here with this, and I'm going to click once, and then I'm going to shift click and work my way around, still holding the shift key down all the time. Just going to work my way around here. Looks like I've got auto mask on. Turn that off. So just want to make sure that all those areas are covered. So we're just going to work around this lantern. Now we do need to come across here because this bit is the bit that's illuminated. So just click in and then shift click to get a straight edge. Same here, shift click to go along there, and then I'm going to freehand draw that around there, and then we're going to just go underneath this glass area, shift click. Make the brush bigger. There we go, and click again so we can just widen out that selection that we've made there. So just making sure that the radial gradient has been removed from around the lantern. Now we do need to deal with this little line in the center there, but just before I do, I'm just going to make sure we've got rid of all of the remaining radial gradient around this one, and you can do that, but just by hovering over there you can see where it was. Well, you can see where I went with the brush having the auto mask switched on. So just want to go back over that and make sure that we don't have any of that auto mask showing. There we go, that's very good. Now this piece also needs to be done, but we don't want it to be quite so dark, so I'm going to go in at about flow 50, take the brush down to the size of this little bar, click once at the top, hold down the shift key and click again. So you can come up there just to make that a little bit wider at the top. There we go. So not too dark. Now it's not really bright enough in the center where the lamp would be, so we're going to click on there, right click, go to duplicate the mask. So we've got now another mask on top, but this one's going to be a little bit smaller. So we're just going to bring that down so it looks like the lamp is actually on inside the lantern itself. So just going to zoom back and see how that looks, come out of the masks. So that looks pretty good. Maybe it could be just a little bit brighter. So we'll go back to the, I think it was the mask 2, which was the main one. And we can also bring up the highlights to make that a little bit brighter as well. And even the shadows if we want to. And even the whites, keep making it brighter. But I don't go too bright there. I think that's about right. So happy with that. So now we need to cast some light on the ground, and particularly over this truck, which is going to be fun. So I'm just going to zoom in to this area where we've got this lantern, and we need to think about how the light's going to fall around this truck. So we're going to create a new radial gradient. We're going to pull a radial gradient out from underneath this light, and we're going to slant it slightly so it looks like the light's coming out at a sort of angle from there. And then we're going to bring up the exposure. Now remember, we can always make it darker, we can always move the sliders. Just want to get a feel for how bright this needs to be. Add in the color that we need from above with a little bit of magenta just to balance that color off. I'm going to bring the highlights down just a little bit so the light's sort of better spread, and just try to find that right angle for where it's going to sit. I think it's going to sit somewhere like that. Now let's just add in a bit of clarity just to make it work a little bit better there. And I think also add in a little bit of contrast. There we go, on that light. So this is just in that radial. This radial up here definitely needs to be more colored. So I'm just going to add in some more color to that, and even some saturation just to get that color working quite well. Now this light's going to be cast everywhere. It's going to be cast onto the back of this truck. It's going to be cast over here. So what we do need to do is add a brush whilst we're still in this mask, bring the feather up to 100, have the flow relatively low, and without changing anything, we should be able to, with a slightly bigger brush, we should be able to just bring a bit of light in on the back of this truck here, like so. So the street light's lighting up the back of this truck, yeah. And it's also going to cast light onto this area over here. So I'm going to take an even bigger brush, and I'm just going to sweep backwards and forwards, focusing more on the middle than away from it. So you can see you're getting that light coming onto that area there. Now this is a little bit bright now, so we can go back to mask 2, which was the lantern itself, and just bring back that exposure a little bit, maybe even a little bit on the highlights, so you can see the lantern inside it again. And that works quite well. So nice bit of light being cast there. I might even go back to that main mask, pick that brush. I might even throw a bit of light over here, just washing it on. And that's the advantage of using a lower flow, is you can gradually build up the light that you're getting in these different areas. So I'm quite happy with that. I do need to just darken that area in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract a brush still with quite a low flow and a high feather, make the brush smaller, and just bring this edge in not quite so bright, because that would effectively be in shadow, that area there. So we've now got light on the back of the truck, got light there. Maybe even pull this light out. So go back to that brush there that we had and just pull this light out a little bit more, working it away there. Look at that, even out into the road a little bit. So happy with that. I'm just gonna subtract a little bit from the road there. And this truck's also going to cast a little bit of a shadow there. So go to number 2 brush, which is the one we were using for a shadow, and just darken down this side of the truck, right? Just because that's in shadow. And also we can cast a little bit of a shadow on the road here from that truck, so it just looks a little bit more like you've got the light and the darkness there. So happy with that. I'm going to move down to do these two. So I'm just going to speed the video up whilst I do the same for each of these street lights down the road. Now, just before I do the lower areas on the road here, I just wanted to show you that when you've done your sort of lanterns, you've got to be careful that you decrease the brightness of each one as they get further away. Then this one looks realistic. This one doesn't. This one looks like it's too bright here. So we do need to just make sure that we go back into that particular mask here and just bring that back just a little bit more, because we don't want it to look too bright, because as things go away in distance they get darker, and that's one of the things you need to concentrate on when you are adding your lighting, is that effectively as things get further away they're not the same brightness. I see that mistake made quite a lot where people copy the same radial down, they don't alter the exposure, and it doesn't look very natural. So whilst we're here now, we're just going to pop in another radial gradient for each of these street lights down here. Just going to pop that in there, come off at an angle like we did before. Just going to brighten that up. So got a bit of light down there. Remember to add the color in, not too much. So it looks realistic. Add a little bit of magenta to balance that color off. Now we don't want to light up the front of the truck here, so let's zoom in there, and let's make sure that we're not lighting up the front of that truck. So inside this, we're going to subtract a brush. We're going to have relatively low feather and a high flow, and we're going to just run that around the front of that truck there, just to remove that light that is sort of coming from, because it wouldn't be there. It would effectively be in shadow. So just runs quite a way over. Just take a bigger brush there and just make sure we've not got the remnants of that radial coming away from there. There we go. So happy with that, and I'm going to just duplicate this one, duplicate the mask, not the radial, because I want to be able to have separate control over it. Move it to an angle that suits, a little bit narrower. It's too bright because it's further away, even though it's the same brightness. So we just need to bring the brightness down slightly, like so. That works quite well. Happy with that. And now, just taking this a duplicate of this mask, we're going to pull this one also up here, as though there is a light just out of shot here, right? So we're just going to put it down here, and we're going to pull it out into the road, pull it out here, a little bit more of an angle. There we go. And as you'll see, this will need to be made brighter now because it's closer. So I'm going to make it a bit brighter, a bit more color. There we go, a bit more magenta. It's a little bit too bright. Let's just take it back a little bit. Yep, and maybe this lantern here, that one needs to be just a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to go back to the lantern itself and just bring up the shadows and the whites a little bit, just to get a little bit brighter. So we've got some light coming in there now from the street lights. I want to light up the front of this shop as well. And one of the things I want to do is sort of mimic that there's lights coming down from above. So what we can do with that is we can create a new mask, new radial gradients, and we can take a big radial gradient and put the source up behind here, and just put it at a slight angle so it's coming down, maybe the other angle, maybe the other way, about there. And then we can bring up the exposure here. You see it's lighting this area here. Add in the color that we've been working with to act as though there's a light behind there. And the real trick here is now to subtract a brush, and that brush should have 0 feather, 100% flow. And I'm just going to put it on the line here at the top. I'm going to hold down the shift key and I'm going to paint along that edge effectively. So what we end up with is we end up with the light coming from underneath that area there, almost as though there's a lamp in there. So it's going to come in a little bit closer, and I'm just going to refine that edge slightly by taking a smaller brush, still where we are here. Take a smaller brush, click on that edge, shift click on that edge down there, and we get this nice hard edge coming from under there. So it looks like the light's coming down from underneath. It could, in fact, we could add a bit of contrast to that, and we could add a little bit more magenta just to balance that color. And I'm just going to open the shadows up as well, just a little bit. Just try and find that sort of common ground. Now, what we can do is we can right click on this one and we can duplicate the mask. And now if we move this one over, you can see that mask line is still there. So we can move it over here, keeping that mask line in the same place. And now we've effectively got another light that comes in on this area here to underlight this area here. I'm going to pull this one down a bit further just to get a little bit more light in that area there. That looks pretty good. We're going to want to put a light under there as well. A little bit more tricky because we've got these archways to deal with. So I think what I'm going to probably do is just maybe back it off a little bit and add create a new radial gradient, and I'm going to probably just put a radial gradient, I think, across the front of these buildings just to light them up a little bit more, because they're quite dark now. So just a little bit there, adding a little bit of temp to that and opening up the shadows a little bit, just to sort of find some more light in that area there. Just going to back the exposure back a little bit. Now we'll subtract the sky because I don't want to light the sky up in that area there. I think we need to light this area up here as well. So I'm going to take this same radial gradient here. I'm going to duplicate this one. I'm going to bring it down here. And we're going to get a little bit more light coming in under here, as though this street light is effectively applying a little bit more light in that area there. Just make sure we've got the color about the right. Plenty of contrast in there. I'm going to subtract a brush just to take it away from the top here along that sharp edge. There we go. And I think we're getting close to being quite happy with this shot here. I'm just going to add in another radial gradient from this side of the road, as though there's a bit of light coming from the other side of the road as well. Just a little pool of light there, coloured in as well. And yeah, let's come out of mask for a second, just see where we're at. I quite like that. I think we need to darken the top of the screen down, so I'm just going to take another mask, but this time a linear gradient, and bring it down from the top here, and just bring that darkness down a little bit more from the top. I'm going to right click and duplicate this here again, duplicate this mask, and the second one I'm just going to push up a little bit further and sort of darken down the very top of that area there. So we're just getting darkness in that top corner. And I think also this in the distance here, I think this does need to be darkened down. I'd like to bring the white down over there. So I'm going to create another mask, take an object selection here, and I'm just going to run the object selection round over the white area. In fact, I will do all of that sign there. There we go. And I might even cross over and do this bit of white here. So object selects that, and we can just bring down the brightness on that whiteness as well a little bit, as though it's a little bit darker over there. I'm just going to add another object selection to this one. So object there, a little smaller brush, and just take that little line there. There we go. That brings that down, and I'm going to add another object just to bring this area here down to the same level. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. Just the light here just needs to be dealt with a little bit. I think it's a bit bright along this edge here. So again, I'm going to create a new mask, take object selection here, take a slightly bigger brush, and I just want to bring this sort of fence and balustrade area here. Select that and just bring that down a little bit. It's just a little bit too bright, and a bit of contrast in there. And then I'm going to add another object selection here, and we're just going to pick these posts up. There's number one, same darkness. Add another object. There's number two, same darkness. And lastly, the third one. Just bring them down to the same darkness level. And I'm going to say, I think we're pretty well close to being happy with this. If I had more time, I would light up some of these windows up here. I think that would bring a little bit more detail into it. But you know, we are governed by time. I don't want to make my videos too long. So I might just recrop slightly just to take a 16:10 crop here, maybe even a 16:9, just to thin it down a little bit more. So we've got that in there, and maybe just bring that in just a little bit at the end there. Hit return. Yeah, I think we're pretty close with this. I just want to do the final sort of correction here. I think we could bring up the highlights a little bit. We can certainly bring up the shadows a bit more in here. Too much. And bring just a little bit more tone into the shot, not too much, because I still want that sort of moonlight effect. Gonna add some clarity. That works quite well. Add a little bit of vibrance so that everything pops. And then I'm just going to do my blacks and my whites. So I'm going to hold down the optional Alt key and move the white slider. Just bring that up. We don't want to go too far. Just there. So that's 17. That's probably just still slightly high. Bring that to 14. I'm going to do the blacks, hold down, just add a bit of black in there. So we've got a good amount of contrast in the shot. I did add this. I did add down here this radial, and you know, actually, I think rather than making it bright, I might actually want to make it dark. So I'm just gonna bring it round there slightly and make it slightly bigger. And instead of bright, I'm going to make it dark over here. Take out that color and just see if that works. Yeah, not too bad. The total area in the center just needs brightening, so I'm going to add one more radial gradient in here, a nice big one. I'm going to pop the center of that brightness about there, just rotate it to the same angle. And what we're going to do is we're just going to brighten that area up in the middle. Bring the shadows up a little bit as well. I think we're about there. And I'm going to leave that shot. I think we've got what we wanted. So Wild West, Generative Fill, is Virginia City in Nevada. Actually, great place to visit. If you get a chance, go over there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please click like. And always enjoy your comments, any points that you like to make. I do my best to answer all of them. And if you haven't already subscribed, it would be great for you to join my adventure here on YouTube. So for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.